Welcome back to 3D animation. We're picking back up with another lesson on character modeling. I wanted to just step back for a second because I wanted to show you a couple of things that I had kind of forgotten about when it came to the setting up your character sheets and your image planes. So I kind of had it set up with this older method of this cross section of the two image planes, and that's fine, but it's also kind of a pain in the butt. I was going to X-ray mode, but honestly, you can also take your image planes and you can bring back the alpha on them so that they just kind of like fade back, so they don't have to be visible instead of the way I had it set up where I was actually going to X-ray mode on the model. I could set these to like zero point 0.2 for each one and then select the other one. This is in the attribute menu, by the way, for the image plane. We'll set that to 0.2. The other thing we can do is we can actually just move these back a little bit so they're not right in the middle of the model. So instead, I could take this like off to the side, and you still see it doesn't actually like change anything in the side view, right? It just kind of gets it out of being right in the middle. And then same thing with this one, I can move it back a little bit and almost put like corner to corner on them. Like I definitely wanted them in the middle to get them like lined up so that they're at the right size, and when I am moving between them so that I have them basically like when I had them like this, at least I kind of knew where my cross sections were if I put it all the way there, just so that like the tops are all matched up and the bottoms of the character sheets are matched up. But after you do that, feel free to kind of move them out of the way, put them off to the side, and put this back. And then I still have this reference in my front and side view. And actually what I can do up in my perspective view, if I don't want to see them there, like I could always come back and see it, but perspective is not a good place to look at an image plane anyway. So I can go to show and I can actually turn off my image planes for the perspective view. So I've always got this as a reference in my bottom right, and I've got the front view over here, and I can leave those up. And I can always just double check on them to make sure they're where I need them to be, right? Right now, I obviously have a little bit more work to do to get them where I want them to be. But that helps tremendously as far as being able to see. Like I can see on this, I really need to work on those feet a little bit more. And I still haven't brought a tail out on it either. So we still need to do the tail. So anyway, I hope that helps a little bit with the image planes. And the other thing I want to show you is if you take your two image planes, like if I select both of them, and if I go to my channel box, there's a layers option in the channel box where you can actually put your models on different layers. And if I do that, this one right here creates a new layer with assign a selected object. So I'm on this button all the way on the right. This will actually put my image planes on their own layer, and I can rename it and call it like I said, image planes, and save it. Oh, I guess that was invalid with a space. Valid only contains alphanumeric. Well, I'm pretty sure I'm using something from the alphabet, but let's see, IP. Let's see if that saves. There we go. That'll work. And then I can make them visible or not visible, which is really great, right? So I can go ahead and turn off their visibility whenever I want. Much easier. I mean, I can always obviously come up here and just hide them too, but this just gives you a single button for turning them on and off, which is kind of a convenient way to work with them as well. Okay, so that was my step back on using the image planes, right? The other thing I wanted to show you is quad draw tool, which normally you would think like drawing out like quads and then extruding them and blah blah. Well, it also has this amazing relax vertices option. So you can see my model has some kind of like little creases and just some kind of like edges that we might want to smooth out. Like, we can definitely use the smoothing tool. I've already subdivided this so I have more polygons to work with. But I wanted to show you this quad draw tool. So if first thing we're going to do though is before we use the quad draw tool, I'm going to choose my selection tool and I'm going to go to my tool settings, and I'm going to just go ahead and turn soft selection on. And right now if I go to like vertices on this guy, sorry, I'm going to go to vertexes. You'll see how big it is. That's a pretty good size. If I want, I can make the fall off smaller by decreasing this and go to like 0.3, and then I get a slightly smaller. But now that I have that, if I go to my mesh tools and I pull up quad draw, and you can look at the settings for it if you want as well. There's some you can play with some of the settings here, but either way, What's cool is I can come in here, and if I hold down shift, you see my like cursor basically goes like right now I'm just pushing and pulling with the quad draw if I just drag it. But if I hold shift, I get this relax option. And you can see now as I click and drag with the relax holding down shift, it actually just helps like relax the vertices a little bit and evenly space them. And so I've already just doing that kind of got rid of that weird little crease that was in the front corner. And it's really nice because like I've got some funky stuff going on underneath the armpits in here too. Um, and so the shift and clicking just helps me kind of like even everything out and space them a little bit better. You can see as I click and drag, everything that's within that gradient zone is kind of like evenly faded off. In that separation of the various vertices. So it's called relaxing the vertices, but it just helps kind of smooth everything out, get rid of hard edges, and you know, like right here, I've got a little crease again. I'll go in there, and look at that. It just smooths it right out. And like I said, you can always go back to the selection tool and increase or decrease the size of that soft selection area. But as I get in there, even this, I'm just kind of evening. I'm taking them from being so extreme and curvy. It's not like changing my model that much, but it's really giving me some nice evenly spaced. The other thing is if you use middle click instead of shift, you get this like bulging more or less that you can do as well with that same fade off. So that's kind of a little bit more extreme. Like you got to watch out. Like obviously we don't want something like that to happen, but I can also kind of push and pull going left and right with the middle click button, which is nice. If I hold shift when I do that, it does the relaxing that way as well. So if I hold shift with the middle click, I can go left or right and get more or less relaxing. So between shift clicking and getting the relax and going through and just kind of like smoothing things out to the middle click shifting, which lets me go left and right, it just turns that quad draw tool into this whole other tool, this like relaxing tool, which is really nice. So I'm going to go around it just a little bit more here. Let's take a look in the face. I'll just kind of do that a little bit in there. Like definitely need it along the top up here. I want to smooth out the top. It's very boxy right now. This will help kind of even those out a little bit. I'm going to go around this top kind of crown. We're still going to use the sculpting tools to push and pull things where I want them. But you can see how it just helps, especially when you get some vertexes that are all bunched up. And again, I'm just doing this holding the shift key with the quad draw. Look at that. Very nice. And if I come down here, you know, you don't want to like over smooth it, but it's like it's almost a combination of smoothing and just kind of equally dividing out the vertexes. So it does smooth a little bit, but it, oops, sorry, I didn't have my shift down there. Just push that. This kind of helps take some of the, I don't know, the distortion of the vertexes that happens. And this will really help you later on when you go to actually rig it, so that you don't get some weird vertices pushing and pulling because the rig is pulling on a really tight little bunch of vertices that all got, you know, kind of shifted. This will help balance it all out a little bit. All right, I'm going to do a little bit more there. So hopefully that helps a little bit as a new tool that I didn't get to show you before. Beyond that, let's come in here and just look at a few more of the sculpting tools, because obviously I have some work to do here. And I'm going to bring this down so we can kind of look at the top of the head. Looks like it needs the most work right now. So I'm going to come up here to my sculpting tools, and I'm going to work on, there's a couple here, like smoothing mesh. I'm sorry, let me go to object mode here. Whoop. Let's go back to object mode. Whoop. Of course, let me turn off soft selection. It can be a pain sometimes just as well as a strength. So let me turn that off. Okay. Right click and go to object mode. There we go. The smoothing will do kind of a similar thing. I showed you this in my last lesson. I'm going to increase the size of it a bit. Oop, that was way too much. Let's bring that back down. Let's go like 0.6. 0.3. How about that? There we go. Smoothing can also help. So as I'm working on that, you can see how that just like actually, it's not just doing what the quad draw relax did. It's literally taking some of the edge out and just helping to kind of soften that whole area up there. So it's similar to the way it relaxes them, but it's really taking the volume out of it as well. I don't want this guy to be so boxy. I want him to be softer and like a little more pudgy around the edges, just for his character, and that's how I'm going to kind of style him out a little bit more. So already I'm starting to get a much smoother character, and that's just using the standard smooth. There's also another smooth that that smooths the surface without changing the original shape. So this smooths, but not in such an extreme way. So it'll still smooth things, but it won't change the shape like the other smooth tool does. Oops, sorry, I'm just trying to zoom in on the eyes a little bit. Let's get in there. There we go. So you can see it's smoothing, but it's not like changing the shape. It's kind of just, you know, this guy's still a little bit too big. Let's take this down to like 0.1. There we go. That's pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and save. Oh, and one other thing, I'll just mention it. It's too late for me now because I already subdivided this model. But one thing I like to mention to do before you subdivide, like before you smooth your low poly model, duplicate it and then hide the duplicate. In case you ever need to go back to that lower poly model, you'll have it in there. I meant to do it and I didn't do it in the lesson, but I wanted to bring it up. And you can just, like I said, hide it and have that duplicate in here. But you can always have a backup. You can always just save a version of it too before you smooth it. So anyway, I'm just kind of, that tool doesn't do as much. It does kind of smooth, but I end up using the regular, just traditional smooth more. So we have some other ones here: pull a vertex, sharpen, level a surface, softly lift a surface. So let's see how that works up on the head here. I want to, we don't want it that much. That was a little extreme. Let's take the strength down to like 2. That's still way too much. Let's take that down to like 0.5. There we go. So maybe down here. That's still way too much. Let's take this down to like 0.1. There we go. And now I'm getting it at the angle that I want these to go as well. I'm just going to, even though that's not part of the drawing, I'm just kind of bringing that up. So that allowed me to make a very quick little tweak. Just these sculpting tools are amazing in that sense. And then I'm going to bring the size. I'm going to do also, you can just do lift a surface. And I'm going to bring my size up a little bit. I'm going to go to like 0.25. And I'm going to try to just bring this whole area up a little bit. I'm just kind of lifting it out, trying to match my, and just so I can see this at a bigger angle. Just because I'm getting more to the front than I am back right now. But that's okay. I'm getting where I want it to go. And then same thing over here. I can kind of bring that out a little bit and get that bulge that I'm looking for. And same thing down here, just going to my character sheet, kind of grabbing out that area. And let's just see how that's looking. It's not bad. I need to kind of bring out some of these areas too. I'm getting a little bit of a lull in the middle. So let's bring that back a little bit. And then maybe just a little bit back here as well. I can kind of just click and pull that out a little bit. So it just depends on how accurate and true you want it to be to your original character sheet. Like obviously we spend a lot of time on these character sheets, but it's okay to make adjustments as you go. You know, if you need to tweak something a little bit more in one way or the other, just because of the way the model worked out, you'll roll with the punches, right? So there we go. Not too bad. Now I would probably go in here and smooth it still a little bit. So I'm going to go back to my smooth tool and just kind of help soften a little bit of what I did there. So it's not quite as bulgy. Coming down here. That's not too bad. I like how that's coming out. So a lot of back and forth, a lot of little nuanced work, but he's definitely starting to get a softer vibe from the boxiness when we first started, right? There we go. And it's definitely been relaxed nicely. I might go back through with that quad draw tool and relax them just a little bit more. I do want to do a little bit of work on these feet. I feel like they could definitely, you know, they're not coming down nearly as much as I had before, and I think the other ones just have a lot more character to them. So in this case, I'm going to turn off camera-based selection, and I'm going to see what I can get out of it. Let's turn on quad draw and go to the vertexes. And I'm just going to see if I can pull this whole guy down a little bit more. So I'm getting, yeah, there we go. I'm starting to get it where I want it. I'm going to kind of tilt the whole guy a little bit. I could have honestly done this a little bit better earlier on if I had done this before I smoothed it, which is, you know, always good to be able to go back. But it's actually not too bad right now. So I'm going to bring this down a little bit. Just drag him out a little. Just so they're, you know, it's not perfectly symmetrical. That's okay, my model isn't, but I just want to drag those feet down so they're at least down around the same ground plane area together from this side view. And I can drag that back if I want. I'll still leave it just a little bit forward, but that's pretty cool. Yeah, I think that'll work. I think I could come back in now and go to my sculpting tools and go to my vertex, or I'm sorry, object mode, and grab this smooth tool again. Just kind of help smooth a little bit of that out. There we go. As you can see, I at least have all quads still. And my pudgy guy's coming together pretty well. All right. I think we'll go ahead and stop there. I think I've got this guy pretty close. You know, as I said, I could always come back to my selection tool, keep soft selection on, go to vertex mode here, and then I could get my mesh tool and bring the quad draw back up. And then just try to, like, you know, after I've done some tweaks, if I want to, hold down that shift and just kind of smooth everybody out again. Just kind of do a quick pass all around in case I kind of, you know, got some of these vertices rolling a little too extreme in some of the areas. Whoop, didn't have the shift down on that. I had an area before in that armpit that I was worried about, but now that I've done a bit of that relaxing, I'm not so worried about it anymore. This side looks really good, nice and clean. It's a little hard to see up under there just because of my current lighting or lack thereof. And let's look down at the bottom here. Let's see how these are. There we go. And just kind of smooth these guys out and redistribute the vertexes. All right, hopefully that helps you a little bit as you're sculpting these. Remember the quad draw, using shift and the middle mouse button along with soft selection to get this ability to kind of redistribute all the vertexes. And definitely use your sculpt tools as much as possible. They're really powerful. You know, I didn't go through all of them because we've already done that in my modeling class, but there's a lot of really good ones if you need to level and flatten out an area, if you just need to pinch out and add some surface textures. There's some stamp tools where you can create almost little like image patterns on the surfaces. There's so much that we can do, you know, if you want to push and pull on a certain area. You know, I didn't get into it much because this character is pretty close, but you know, I could do all of this at different degrees depending on the strength and size that I set in the attribute menu. But I think my model's pretty close. Oh, you know what? I didn't do the tail yet, but you know, if I was going to really do the tail, I would have done that back before I smoothed it. So I think I'll just keep going without a tail on this guy for right now. All right, as always, thanks for tuning in, and let me know if you have any questions.